Good day, everybody. Welcome to our June Dalim tips and tricks. Today, we're going to do a recap of EuroDUO 22. So let's get going. So first, webinar settings. In the middle of your screen at the top, there should be Zoom button if you need to zoom into any content or need to fit better. You have that ability to do there. Any questions, please post in the question section on the control panel on the right-hand side or wherever you have it right now. If pertinent, somebody can stop me and they'll read them to me. I don't pay much attention to them as I'm going through the webinar, but we will look at them at the end of the webinar and go over any that are important and we need to cover. If we run out of time, we will cover those and I'll email everybody the answers to some of the ones that might be there. So EuroDUO 22, held in Germany. As usual, Carol started off with his keynote, talking about content and how important content is to everyone throughout brands, resellers, retailers, photography studios. You name the customer, content's important to them. So we kind of went through history of that, how important digital content is now opposed to print content. And then also talked about a lot of movement that Dalim's doing towards sustainability, and those things in Europe, especially right now, very important. And he's kind of had that as a key point of most of his keynotes the last couple of years, and that they keep expanding on that at Dalim, and want everyone to know that's really important to him. Now they moved on to, and I'm gonna cover some of this stuff, just mentioning some of the topics. As you know, Duo, a lot of times we have customer testimonials or panels, and I'm just going to touch on what those are. I'm not going to go into detail. If you would like to know more about those, you can get those videos by emailing us and asking about them. We'll make those available to you. So Hyphen did a presentation. Hyphen's customer at Dalim in Italy. They deal mainly with the fashion industry. So Marco did a presentation showing how they use ES, and they actually have a kind of a portable photo studio truck. It's set up, park at a site, set up a photo shoot directly in the truck with everything they need on it, sends it to their ES system for ratings and annotations and everything, goes through the process. So pretty interesting stuff they're doing there. Then Frank and Florent talked about the Dalim ES connector, and specifically as it comes to the InDesign server. So there's not any really new features inside the plugin itself, except for just stability and improving things like that. But what they're working on, they had this, I think I talked about this at maybe the Worldwide Technology meeting or last year's Duo. They actually had a script that would run an InDesign server. They've now done an installable plugin that we can help you set up, configure, point to your ES. And what that'll do for you is allow you to work in ES as far as annotations and everything at the InDesign page level. So you can use the plugin, place your assets from ES low res into InDesign, save those files into ES, go through the annotation process, approval process, without having to make the PDFs or having the users use their InDesign and their resources on their laptops or workstations to make those PDFs. Once the file's approved at a certain point inside of ES, it can call the InDesign server, make the PDF with the correct specs, so we can have it based on the job ticket, call the correct specs in the InDesign server, make the PDF with that high-res PDF. So it'll do OPI swap, basically. Remember the days of OPI, back into ES as a high-res PDF from a low-res file in InDesign. Obviously, much more important these days, in the industry especially, we kind of got out of the need for OPI because networks became pretty fast. But now, especially what a lot of people found out with through the pandemic, is when people got sent home to work, people's home networks, they thought they were wonderful. They had, gigabit networks for download speeds, and then found out that their upload speeds, especially with some providers like, I won't name them specifically, but some providers, the upload speeds were dreadful, and that they had to upload these large files they were creating for the PDFs. It would take a lot of time and suck it up. So kind of OPI became important again. So that is something that I actually plan on showing in a future webinar, kind of once I can just get to setting up an InDesign server to test this on. I'm going to set it up, go through, kind of just do a plugin 2.0 and kind of rehash what the plugin will do for you, and step all the way through an InDesign based workflow. Oops, not jump ahead here. So Mike Clervy used to work for one of our customers, Quad, is now an employee of Dalim. So he's working with Dalim, helping a lot with the UK market, also helps us here in the US. And he did a presentation on 10 ways to discover assets in ES, talking about the search functions of how to make the most of finding your assets inside of ES. And I'll just touch on some of the stuff he mentioned. So talk about, and most of you should know many of these, keyword searches, similarity searches, or similarity or color similarities, facets and taxonomy, browsing directly to the project or the file system based on your directory structure or the project structure. See, you can combine all of those and do save searches. So you can have a list of saved searches that you go to all the time. You can create collections to put files in that you want to look at later or want to share with someone to look at and collaborate with. You can use production status filters. I'm not sure everybody's familiar with that one. I'm going to show that in a second. You can do a list of favorites, so markup files inside of ES so they show up as your favorites and they're always kind of there for you. And you can also use metadata filters. So jump to my ES and kind of go over a couple of those. So here's the production status filters, or these that you see at the top. So I can look at, click in there, quickly go to pages that are in the design done, or go for internal review. So I can filter on any of those. If I want to filter on specific metadata, I have these, well, let me do this, I'll show you in this view so you can see kind of I have specific metadata on some of my images here. And I can use that filter and kind of filter on specific ones. It's almost, these are not enumerations. These are just showing the results that are common to all of these files. So these are actually, I've created the metadata with strings. And if I go to dog, there's all my dog ones, cat, all the ones with cats in it. I can mix those. So I can say cat and Bengal. So there's my Bengal cat. So anything like that. So again, just different ways to find information. You combine those and which ones are waiting for approval. So you can combine those, save all those as you need. And favorites, just to show favorites real quick. Favorites, if you go to your home, kind of I have a couple of images I starred inside of ES, and they will show up here in this little link of favorites that's on my home screen that's set up. Just start on the next slide. Second. Graham hosted a panel discussion with Alan Darling. Clervy was on that as well, and then Ryan Fromm from Blanchard Systems were on the panel. Just talk a little bit about, we get into, especially a lot of later duos or what technology meeting, we talk a lot about digital files, web, that print's still alive and very important to Dalim. So we had a panel discussion talking about the history of where everybody came from in it, where they see it going, and basically how important it still is to many of our customers and ourselves. Aristide had a session with Taki from AWS in Europe. So Dalim has done a lot over the last few years, working closely with AWS. A lot of this you'll see in their plans for Link and basically containerization of the product, expanding it, stuff like that, but doing everything they can to make sure that Dalim works as well as possible in the cloud, as the cloud's become more and more important to many of our customers. So Tim did a session talking about content marketing operations. So Tim has become product manager at Dalim. Has really focused a lot on what Dalim needs to do better to focus on specific markets. The first we kind of picked up is improving ES as a DAM solution itself, and that's where he got really hands-on and created that with the React interface that I'm going to be poking in and out of during this session and talking about a good bit and focusing on this session that gave a nice GUI, great experience, purpose-built experience on the DAM product for ES. We wants to do the same from a marketing standpoint, a content marketing operations standpoint. And as he looked around, he spoke about this during this presentation that Dalim has a marketing department that has needs and should be using the products to fulfill those needs. And they do now. And with Tim, they're making improvements to help Dalim through that. And what better people to do that with than your own marketing group? So you're talking about people, process, technology, all dealing with the content, making it more important, more accessible to everybody. Talked about the 3 Ps, basically: purpose, plan, produce, promote your content, and just how Dalim helps you make that, get to things faster and less effort. First, purpose. You look at Dalim ES, you're hosting all your assets in ES. You're able to find them. You're able to maybe create new content to put in and have that accessible, rate it, do approvals, make sure it goes through. So you do give purpose to the content. You're planning it. You have your job tickets, your briefs, project briefs to fill in all the information, who the stakeholders are, where the product's going, how it's going to run through the workflows. We do dynamic workflows using the job ticket information to say what kind of files we need at the end. Produce. It's what we do. It's what we've done forever in Dalim, and with ES, Twist, Litho, all of Dalim's products. Now we use our ES connector to produce things directly in InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator. Find our content, use it in our pages directly from ES instead of having to share it via file systems and Samba mounts and hard drives or emails, back and forth. Supporting more and more formats, improving how we handle videos, how we handle HTML files. And obviously promote being the last step. Giving ways in ES to create different file formats for web, for email, for print. Also sharing those directly via Facebook, Twitter, whatever the social media need is. Built into the workflow, sharing things out automatically, creating all the different versions of files that we need. Interesting discussion. Uwe did a presentation. He's with Melchor Brothers and his brother work. And basically, I wanted to touch on this because it's just interesting that he talked a lot about how retailers and brands all over the world are really focusing on the one thing that can't be digitized as much, right, is packaging. What do we do with packaging? Is to, especially from the sustainability standpoint and how it affects the environment. And he really touched on how all these companies are focusing on ways to improve packaging to minimize the damage it does to the economy, the environment, sorry, and all that. So it was an interesting presentation, just kind of a informational one, and like I said, just touching on some of what's discussed at some of the DUO events. Those of you familiar with Worldwide Technology Meeting, a little bit more, much more product centric and stuff like that. DUO is a little bit more open and just trying to open people's ideas on different things that they can do. So Aurelian did a presentation on kind of, in a way, it became the improvements that they're doing to the React interface. So those of us that have seen, React when it first came out, or as we waited for it to become live, and we've gone through a couple of demos, it's very damn centric, and it was very specific, almost to just users that are searching for items, rating them, approving them, annotating those things, and it was very simple, in, out, very clean interface. Well, by adding some of the power of desktops to the React interface, they're able to extend out the functionality, and they're looking at more and more that they can do, keeping people in the nicer React interface, but still able to do everything. So for that, I'll jump out and actually show a little bit of that and how it's actually available. So, everyone's heard some of the React interface. Some of you have dev systems. I don't think we have anybody who's actually using it in production yet here in the US. But y'all seen these presentations, y'all heard about it. You may have installed ES6 with Service Pack just to do a dev system and touch and feel, and you don't have a React interface. You don't know how to get to it. So when you install it, and I'll actually go through the installation process a little bit later, but once it's installed, you actually do need to go through a little bit of setup for it. You need to set up a job ticket. So it is a desktop, basically. The whole React interface is a desktop in ES. So you do need the desktop plugin licensed. But once you have that and it's installed, what you need to do is basically the simplest of desktops. So create it, and I'll go through that process. So you get your job tickets, you make a new job ticket. You tell it it's a desktop, save it. You have, by default, the desktops come with one piece up there. You have specific components you can use if it's a desktop function, and you just drag the ES React one in there. And if you want to use defaults, that's all you need to do is from this end, create the job ticket itself. You have some settings here that I will go through in a little bit. After you have your desktop done, you need to add it to a profile. So you need to create a profile, call it what you want, and the default function needs to be that desktop. So you're able to choose desktops here. The remote function, the default function, sorry, is that, and that is when you log in for that profile, that's what's going to come up. So you do need to do those steps, or it's not available to you if you've been looking for it. And so go here and go through some of the settings that you're able to do. See, there are customizations that have been added. It used to be you just could install it and it was there and it just worked kind of as needed. One, you're able to change primary and secondary colors. I would tell you probably to ignore secondary color because I'll show you exactly what that affects. Primary is dark mode, and your primary light mode. Actually, they changed it, the name of these. So kind of ignore the secondary. I'll show you what that's for. But you have the dark mode and the light mode. So what that is I come in here. So in dark mode, you'll see that yellow color that's defined here. If I copy that so I don't lose it. If I change that to blue, save that. And refresh. Hopefully it behaves the way it was behaving earlier. It's now blue. So that's affecting that. The secondary for this, it affects like this and that. That's all I've really found. Don't know what else is hidden. It's just not a big color difference. There's no way to change the dark background or anything like that. Just your warning colors and that piece up there. I'll put it back where it was. Okay, so that's what those do. You have the ability to change use a virtual asset revision field. So if you want to show a different type of revision that you want to manually track through your workflow, where the revision number maybe only changes after certain steps or anything like that, you can actually, and this will just let you choose the metadata set that you want to use for that, and the property itself under that metadata set that you're going to use to store what the revision field shows. The revision field is going to show up, let's see if so you see the revision there on all of these, that what it's changing. Project match revision field, just controlling the maximum number of revisions that can be held. You have an iframe permalink, as they call it. What this basically is you can actually put in a URL to, in this case, it is, you can actually put in any URL they say, although I haven't been able to get that to work well. This is actually a URL to a Kibana dashboard. So that's why when I go to my home here, you'll see this Kibana dashboard load. That's what shows up here. There's ways you can do it. I don't see it in there yet, but you're going to be able to do a desktop if you want in there itself. So you could do like your project dashboards or something like that. A website, so you could actually have it point to like instructions or something like that you build for yourself, for say your customers know what to do, kind of thing, or just a Kibana dashboard. To get the Kibana dashboard, basically, and let's see where that's at. So if you're on the dashboard inside of Elasticsearch here, inside Kibana, there's a share button. You can get the permalink there. So any dashboard you build, you can browse to it through the dashboard option. This is Elasticsearch 7. So you can go to dashboards, put your dashboards up, and then when you pull up, share and get that permalink, and that's what you put into that field. Allow global metadata. What that does is it's actually going to control, and let me put this right back in the right color. That blue throws me off. Oh, well, I didn't save the changes yet. What that allows you to do is actually get this button here, the global metadata button. If you don't have that on, the only metadata that's available to this user is one that's specifically set for them. It will not show all the global metadata that's set for everyone to use. Show approval functions will do just that. Basically, it'll allow this, which is my approvals. If I go to an asset and select an asset, the approval buttons will show up if it's allowed. So that kind of thing is just turning on and off. They're allowing approvals. That's the way to turn off somebody actually being able to approve stuff. My approval is home. I think this will do it without me relogging. It's just showing files that I need to approve as the home locations. You see now when I click the home, it's my approvals is default instead of the Kibana report and all the other stuff. The home button now becomes just my approvals all the time. So that's what that controls. Allow share link view as. basically turns this on, where if you go and share, right now I don't have view as. If I turn that on, some of these are on and off just because I've been playing with them. Nope, I didn't save it. But the share as, oh, sorry. The view as function, sorry, will show up here. Otherwise, it will not show up. Allow social media share, same thing. If that's on, you'll get at the bottom of the share link, you'll get the social media choices. If you notice, the React interface is actually, it does not require you to log in and log out for a lot of these changes. Just a refresh does that. So now you have the social media changes at the bottom. Include folders in search results, does just that. When you do a search, it'll include folders in the system as well as files themselves. You can limit the maximum number of results. The go-to desktop option, this is kind of what we were talking about, where it adds this button here. You can actually put the name of any desktop in here. When you click on this, it'll actually just take you out to that desktop. So in this case, I don't really have an interesting desktop pointed to. I was just kind of playing with it, but you can do that. And in that desktop, it's important to remember to put a button inside your desktop that takes you back to your React interface, or you're kind of stuck outside of it. So just a way to navigate in and out. So it could be a job ticket, it could be a dashboard that shows all your project statuses or whatever you might need to get quickly. So you can do that by going there. Compatibility mode actually adds a new function where you can actually get to job tickets. They haven't rebuilt the job tickets in the React interface. They let users do that themselves, and just gonna refresh this. But what it allows you to do is actually through here, if I go into whatever, let's go to Acme, adds this plus here. So this will actually go to, for instance, I just have it linked to a job creation job ticket. So by putting that there, I can use this job ticket to create a new job inside of ES, but stay inside the React interface. Same thing for editing a project. So if I have one, I can come here and there's all my job tickets, because I don't have this specifically done to change it, but I can get to all my job tickets through here and close that out and be right back in React. So now I can interact between, in fact, I think since the last time we actually showed the React, I don't think you could even view the projects themselves. It was strictly kind of just by searches and file system. Now you can browse the projects themselves, edit the job tickets, add and create new projects themselves, and edit them after, delete the projects, all of that. All that can be done. So that's kind of just a walkthrough of what you can control inside the React interface. They're always going to be updating that, but I personally, I really like this interface. I think it's a nice experience for users, and we've done a bad job on our webinars and stuff, trying not to focus and stay in this interface. We're always in that full admin interface, showing all the bells and whistles and features. We really hopefully can stay a little bit more in this and show you this kind of experience and what it can do for your customers and your users as well. And after our presentations, Dalim ES video viewer. So I think in the last update I did in January for the Worldwide Technology meeting, we talked about the new changes of the video viewer. Those are now included with Service Pack 1. Again, I'll go through the installation of that later. They're accessible. It's accessible either via the React interface or just your traditional interface. It's used in either one. And just to show you quickly what it can do when it launches. So it looks a lot more consistent to the other viewer that we have for images, HTML as well, and you just have the ability to do some nice stuff in there. So just see like, this video player's nice inside of it. For some reason, my scrubber doesn't work. It should have a scrubber here. It should show preview, jump straight to it. You can control. I'm just going right arrow, left arrow, so I can go back and forth, set the preferences on that. So like I say, it's 5 frames or 15 frames. Go right there, I can hide the controls at the bottom. Change my volume. Won't play much of that since YouTube will probably give me a copyright strike. But it's nice though is we have the ability to do annotations on it. So you see the annotation here and annotation there. And the annotation before in the older one, you would kind of drag it along the timeline and everything. Now you can give it an exact start time and how long to run it for. So a lot more control over what you're doing with it. For your revisions, you're able actually, with videos, to actually do a compare of the videos. So if I go through where my annotation is, I can actually, I just disable my mouse share. 1 second, my mouse decided to break. There we go. So sorry about that. So I can sync them up. So both of them will play at the same time. And I go through, it's identical video, but you can actually see the differences there. If I go to the end, somewhere near the end, see my computer actually gets out of sync a little bit, but you can see that there's the active one and the previous one. So it's nice that you have the overlay like that, or I can go side by side, view them side by side. And actually to compare, full screen mode, approvals, rejections, all in here, kind of just like the viewer that we're used to. So I think that's pretty nice improvement on it, and a nice experience, works pretty well. And important to understand one thing, all the videos that get put into ES as an asset get converted to MP4. So gives that compatibility on screen of all of them having the same experience in that. No, it doesn't matter what browser you're on, you're going to be able to play your MP4 through the viewer inside of ES. So then Raphael and Christoph talked a little bit about Service Pack 1 and some of the changes that were incorporated. Those of you, if you were looking for Service Pack 1, or that it definitely got delayed at the beginning of the year, there were actually pretty good reasons why it got delayed and some of the stuff Dalim's done. It is released now, it is an official version, but it did get delayed for pretty good reason. You know, the log4j stuff came up as a major vulnerability. So a lot was done through builds to resolve that. In Service Pack 1, moving up to Elasticsearch 7, previous versions of Elasticsearch had log4j inside of them. So if you had those accessible from the outside, it could be vulnerable. But it's been completely removed in Elasticsearch 6 and on, and in Twist 9. Twist 9, from my understanding, if I remember right, someone correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we actually made use of it, but the libraries were there. That's completely gone, so you won't even get flagged by anything checking. And updated Java versions, of course. All of this obviously relies on your OS and your infrastructure. The other thing that happened was the Russia-Ukraine war. So it's interesting. They talked about this a little bit, that a lot of companies that pulled out of Russia seem to find themselves being targeted a little bit by some unknown cyber criminals. Hacking attacks. Dalim got a lot of reports from customers of seeing some unusual things in log files, especially looking for that log4j vulnerability. Even customers that didn't pull out of Russia, we won't say, but other countries also have hackers that might have targeted them. So Dalim did a lot before the true release of Service Pack 1 to make sure any vulnerabilities were taken care of. And that shows, and it's important to all of our customers. Because of that, another thing that Dalim's had to kind of deal with is this companies install things like Sophos, Lacework, F-Secure, whatever it is to try to catch it. These things are basically watching systems, watching for changes, watching for different communication between servers, things like that. You've seen an uptick of ES or twist processes getting flagged, just as unusual because it pounds boxes, right? And you need to be aware of that. You need to know how to take care of that or filter those out. Just something to be aware of, something Dalim's worked with a lot of their customers in Europe, and wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that. Some of the improvements in Service Pack 1, they improved the installation routine. So before, when they talked about the World Technology Meeting, there were a few more hoops that you had to jump through than you have to jump through now. It's a lot easier to install. It gives you the option to install the older Tomcat and Postgres versions before you had to go clean them up manually. The Elasticsearch migration has been improved. So they actually have included scripts to make the migration part of the installation. So before, you would actually have to back up your own indexes and recover those and upgrade those. There's a manual process on that. They've actually included, I think Christoph said, about a gigabyte worth of scripts on the installer that will do this stuff. Basically, make a snapshot of your existing index and then import that upgraded in place. Because problem with Elasticsearch, and I think Alex has brought this a lot of people's attention, is that it is only compatible one version back from a creation standpoint. So if you have an index that was originally created in ES5, which could be Elasticsearch 2 or 5, and you've upgraded it to, when you went to 5.5, you've upgraded it to Elasticsearch 6, that index was still created, well, from 2 you would have had to upgrade to 5. So the index was still created in 5 and would not be compatible directly to upgrade into Elasticsearch 7. So Dalim has created a process behind the scenes that looks like, from our testing so far, that it does this and does that pretty well. So we didn't have that problem on our demo server, which had an index that was an Elasticsearch 5 index from a creation standpoint. The React and video player, it's still a little bit of a manual install. Just got to move it just because people's plugin directories are sometimes different. So if it's different, you have to actually move it yourself. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. Obviously, improved cybersecurity protection, as we spoke about. They also have scripts that look at your current ES it's upgrading from and do some best guesses on settings for Tomcat, Postgres, and Elasticsearch as it's upgraded. That noted that you do have to pay attention that if you have some settings and you really like your settings, obviously you're going to different versions and those may change, but it's upgrading. It's a new version of Postgres. It's a new version of Tomcat. Those settings do not just come over from the old one. If you want to tweak it, you do have to tweak it after you've done the upgrade. Service Pack 1 is not a patch of the ES6 product. So if you're running 99.18, you're still running 99.18 from the build standpoint and the functionality standpoint. The React and Video Viewer are two different modules, different pieces that are installed with Service Pack 1, but everything else under the hood architecturally is the same. Uh, so the video player, obviously you need new media annotations as a module, not just the typical annotations. And some of this older instructions that I pulled over from them, it looks like, because the backup and restore, you obviously, basically when you run the service pack, it will ask you if you want to use an existing backup of your Postgres database, or it'll make a backup and do the restore from it. You have that option. Make your backup beforehand, or when you're running the patch should take longer. It still needs to do it anyway. If you have a large database, it will take some time, obviously, and you definitely have to plan that. You should walk through this on a dev system or something like that to know how long it's going to take you. This between the database and Elasticsearch, there's a lot of time that can be in there. Some of these Elasticsearch indexes are very, very large, and do take some time to migrate over. So make sure you have this planned. Make sure you have the downtime plan when you're upgrading production. If you're going, especially multiple versions up, if you're on ES5.5, when you go to ES6 itself, check your job tickets out. I think Alex has documented this, talked about this in previous webinars, that some job tickets with certain features do not come over properly. You have to rebuild them, recreate them, or modify them. Scripts, certain URLs may change, so you need to look at that. Check all your scripts, anything that you're running. Components and smart views, check those. If you've created plugin components, check those. And then SDK, the SDK, especially the Dialog SDK, a lot more security involved. So test those out, test those integrations out beforehand. And what Dalim will say is, it's a lot to bite off. It's a big piece. Contact, us as your integrator, reseller. Contact Dalim, through us, and we can plan and do this with professional services time, help you through the process, through testing, and through the steps. So just kind of going through, walking quickly through the installation instructions. I don't want to harp on this a long time. You basically, you get the ISO. You have to, if you're running ES5 or ES5.5, you have to go to the base installer to upgrade to ES6 first. That's the name of the installer there. Install that, then patch ES6 up to the latest official build, which is 99.18.1. And then install that. Then you can install the service pack, which is listed below. To install the React and video viewer, we saw on our demo server, it looked like it put it in place. On this training server I'm using for the webinar, it's not in place. So what it's going to do is actually create 2 zip files in the folder there, Symlinks Dalim 6.0 Spree plugins. You need to copy those plugins to the folder you're going to find in your set environment sh file, which is basically saying where are my plugins. By default, typically it's in that Symlinks var es HTML plugins folder. You just copy your files there and you unzip them in that folder. Restart Tomcat, obviously, after the fact. Tomcat, it goes through and does a pretty nice job of upgrading your Tomcat. Creates a standard context XML file. You have to edit that. The startup script gets put in place, so Tomcat 9 starts correctly from what we've tested on our systems. And any tuning you got to reconfigure. And there is new syntax apparently in the set environment sh file. And obviously we can help you with those kind of things. Postgres, It'll either, again, take the dump you did, the backup you did, and restore it, or it can do it during the installation itself. Startup script gets added as needed, and apparently they do migrate the most common settings, but any specific tuning you've done, you definitely should look back at the configuration and the PGHBA conf file and make sure that all of that tuning is done properly to your needs. For Elasticsearch, I've talked about that already, and obviously they warn you again, it could take several hours. In our process, especially, always remember, Dalim, your object index can be recreated from your ES itself if something happens to it. Same kind of thing, it'll take just as long to recreate that object index. We've had one that took about 48 hours to rebuild an object index one time. But the log index, there's no way to recreate that. That's written only into Elasticsearch. So if your log index is important to you, make sure you have a snapshot of it outside of this in case something happens during this process. A lot of customers don't necessarily care too much about the log index, but we have some that have dashboards that use it, and it's very important to them. Make sure you treat that information properly. So Dalim's been working, this is something they teased a little bit Worldwide Technology Meeting. They have a dev portal online now. Before, everything that they had, was behind a login. So you had to have a login and credentials to get to it. It looks like a dev portal I was able to hit without logging in, unless I had a saved login somewhere, and get to a lot of information. This is where it could be putting a lot of development information for the APIs, for integrations that are done, and a lot of posts they're going to allow from what looks like anyone that developed with Dalim does stuff. So it kind of looks like this development portal. I'll jump into it in a second. And you can reach it at developers.dalim.com. So I think I got that here somewhere. So there it is live. Refresh the page. So let's go to API. Here's all the API documentation. You can get to it. Postman, they actually have samples and configurations that you can actually download, specific sample scripts for this. So that's cleaned up a lot quicker since it's on a website than the Confluence site they had before, which is a little bit hokey. So we can get the docs, you can get the API, the SDK, information on Dalim Drive and its API information. Plugin desktops, Twist API, CMIS API. A lot of these don't have information in them yet, but you can get specific information on some of these integrations they've done, like with Archaware or IBM Watson, Dropbox. Let's see if I was randomly clicking. I should have noted which ones actually had specific information inside of them, but some of them do. Obviously, they're going to be adding in more and more information to this. And then they're also going to weekly post tech blog. So they're going to be posting stuff in here every week from what they said, keeping up information on just how to do things. They used to do the tech news that they would send out periodically, things like that. I believe this will take place with that and give everybody a place to go to find out information. So that kind of covers Duo for 2022, EuroDUO. We did not have a Duo here in the US. I'll talk about that in a little bit probably. So let's see, questions. So somebody's asking about the React updates, and looks like they keep expanding it. they're asking how that fits into Link. Are they going to combine at some point? Link is a different development. It will be a different product. ES will be supported for years to come, but at some point they will end of life it down the road and everything will be migrated to Link. Those of you who were with us through Mistral, it'll be similar to the Mistral ES thing. It was two different product developments. Eventually Mistral end of life was supported for quite some time after it was even end of life. But the idea is eventually everyone will get to Link as a product. And if you want to know what Link is, I mentioned you should look at my webinar from January of 22 that talks about what Link is and what they mentioned at Worldwide Technology Meeting. And something that when we get our hands on, which won't be for a couple of years. It's nothing anybody has to worry about anytime soon. We'll be doing webinars specific to Link when it is a product and does come out. Somebody's asking on the developers Dalim.com website, is that going to take place of the other ones, a Confluence site in that? I'm not sure. I did not hear them mention that. I had posted that, I think, in the chat during the event, but it didn't get answered. So that is something I will find out for you. It looks like we have new users that are basically asking, like, how do you attend like EuroDUO? Just to let the new customers know. So Dalim has a couple of events during the year. Duo is the Dalim Users Organization meeting. You can get information on that from us. We used to host, before pandemic, we would always host one every year here in the US. It would move between sites. We've had it in Las Vegas, New Orleans, several times in New Orleans, Orlando, Washington, DC. We've moved it around, try to keep it interesting for users, and it is, all of our customers are invited to it. We encourage you to come because you get great content like we just talked about. What they had this year, we didn't do a US Duo. They did EuroDUO near the Dalim headquarters in Germany at Europark. And since the beginning of the pandemic, they've always done basically hybrid events. So they shared this on a product called AirMeet. So this was AirMeet, and this is actually sessions. And after the sessions, you can actually go back in here if you registered and watch the replay of the session itself. If you'd like to find out more about any of these sessions I talked about, if you did register for a Raw Technology Meeting and you were in the AirMeet, you can get the replays on here. If not, contact us and we can try to get you the login information so you can actually watch these presentations. It is pretty interesting. At some point, I couldn't go into all the details on all of them. I'm trying not to do the 1.5 to 2 hour webinars that Alex does. I'm trying to wrap this up quickly. Someone's asking about AWS and how they can migrate their products to AWS. They've had discussions apparently. You can contact us. We've done several AWS migrations for customers, as well as we host our own customers in AWS and do basically white glove service where we become their sysadmins, host the products, take care of all the updates, everything for them, and work with them as sysadmins. So you do have those options. If you're doing your own cloud, not a problem. We can definitely help you with that as well. We've done that with customers as well. And I think that's it. I think that's all the questions. So I want to thank everybody coming. Hopefully you got a lot out of that. Again, hopefully we will have a Duo 23 here in the US, and we'd love to see everybody there. We kind of miss seeing people person to person. For the webinar, we try to host these every third or fourth Thursday of the month now, because we do have to move it around based on being pretty busy lately. You can find out, typically when we post them, we try to put them on our website on the events tab. We will always take the videos, post those on our YouTube channel and in Zendesk. That's the URL to our YouTube channel. You can search on it as well. And so you'll see this one up next week if you're interested in going back to it. Till then, so we'll talk to y'all next month, sorry. Hopefully see some of you soon in person. Everybody have a great day.